Good morning. The street committee will be called to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes. Alderman Conway. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Murphy.
Here.
Alderman Kotar.
Here.
Alderwoman Boyd. Alderman Bosley.
Here.
Alderwoman Martin.
Yeah, we got a whole bunch of them.
Chairman Boyd.
Present.
5 present. We have a quorum.
Okay. Thank you. The first board bill we're going to discuss is Board Bill number 39, introduced by myself, presented by the treasurer, who's also the parking supervisor, Tashara Jones. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here. Treasurer Jones, we did have some enlightening information last week. Michelle Smart did present the budget, but there are some questions that some of the committee members wanted to, ask of you. So we wanted you to come and just kind of talk about your budget and maybe what are some of the goals of the Parking Commission, this next fiscal year, if there are any major projects that you see coming online, and just whatever questions that the committee may have. So do you want to kind of talk in your own words about the budget, how it was crafted, and what your goals are?
No, I believe my chief of staff and my chief financial officer have answered all the questions that are related to the budget. So if you have any specific questions,
Okay.
we can try those.
We'll go down the row. We'll start with Alderman, who's not here, Alderman Murphy,
No questions at this time, thank you.
Alderman Coulter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for being here, Treasurer Jones, and thank you to your staff for getting me. I requested some documents. They were able to provide them. I'm just getting a chance to look at them now, so I would expect I'm going to probably have some more questions over the coming days and weeks. But I wanted to talk a little bit about, if you could, and I don't remember this, when did the new meter system, so I guess the electronic, the app, and the, I guess, meters that take credit cards, when did those fully come online? Was that fiscal year 15 or 16?
That would be in between 15.
Between the two?
Yeah,
Okay,
between the
okay.
two.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but since then you've seen sort of an uptick in meter revenues, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and that's because more people are paying, it's easier to pay and whatnot, correct?
I believe so. Is that right, Michelle?
Having the various options available to pay now has contributed to that.
Okay. Out of curiosity, what are more popular, or what do you find that citizens prefer? Do they prefer the, I guess, the kind of old-school-looking meter with the credit card reader in it that can still take change and credit cards, or do they prefer the kiosks? Have you done any research into that and to see what people prefer?
We have not.
Sorry?
We have not done
Okay.
any research on
Are you
that.
planning on doing that?
We just know that 50% of our revenue comes through credit cards or alternative forms of payment.
50%?
Yes.
Okay, and is that, so that's either credit card payments at the meter or the app, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And is there, and at this point, have you guys replaced all the meters? I mean, do all the meters now have credit card capability?
Yes.
Okay. So your chief of staff provided me a copy of your most recent audit, I guess the 2016 audit, and I've just glanced at it. I'm going to probably have some more questions for you guys. But I was hoping we could talk a little bit about, I guess, the net position of the parking division, specifically the net investment in capital assets, the restricted bond reserve funds, and the unrestricted fund. Could you sort of walk the committee through those three, I guess, categories and sort of what they entail? It's page 4 of the KPMG audit.
Just 1 second.
Take your time.
Do you have any extra book?
I'm sorry?
Do you have any extra booklet?
No, I did not bring any extra, sorry.
This was information that Alderman Kohler asked after the
Okay, so what was your specific question, please?
So on that page, if you look at your, I guess you've got your assets, your liabilities, and your net position. Could you talk to me a little bit about, I guess, your, let's see what numbers have changed considerably. Talking about your current liabilities, I see those decreased from 15 to 16. Could you elaborate on that? What exactly caused that $1.1 million change?
The current liabilities are a combination of our operating expenses. When we move to a accrual basis accounting, we also have to account for the different expenditures that have not been paid for. So there was a decrease between the 2 years of different types of operating expenditures that we normally accrue for at the end of the year that have not been paid.
Okay. And then in your restricted bond reserve funds, I assume that's money you're setting aside specifically to cover bond payments as part of your bond indentures, right?
Those are in the bond funds,
Okay,
yes.
okay. And then could you talk to me about this unrestricted, which is, I guess, the last number? It is, as of 2016, I guess, 20.3 million. In 2015, it was 15.2 million, pretty sizable, a 33% change there. Could you talk to me about what unrestricted is?
The unrestricted money deals with what is remaining after we go through the process of determining what the 40% to the general fund is, and then whatever is left at that point is considered unrestricted money.
Okay. So as of, I guess, June 30th of 2016, that unrestricted fund balance was about $20.3 million.
Yes, it was.
As we sit here today, do you know what the balance of that fund is?
That balance right now is roughly around 13 million because we did move $10 million into a MOSIP account.
I'm sorry, could you elaborate on that, into a what account?
I'm sorry, say that one more time?
Could you elaborate, you moved $10 million into what?
It is a MOSIP account.
I'm not familiar. Could you explain what that is?
That is on the lines of a money market, well, not money market, mutual fund type investment account that is liquid and able to be accessed quickly, but allows you to earn more of an interest income on the money.
It's essentially a mutual fund, and who manages that fund?
PFM.
PFM? What is PFM?
PFM is our asset management firm. It's also the comptroller's financial advisement firm. MOSIP is a local government investment pool, so we participate with school districts and other municipalities in the state of Missouri.
Okay. And PFM, what does that stand for?
I don't know what PFM stands for. I can't remember.
Okay. All right. And so I guess, Madam Treasurer, could you talk to us, I guess, about, so now you've got, obviously your restricted bond reserve funds, which are part of your indentures. You've also got, I guess, $13 million as of today, or approximately, an unrestricted capital. Do you have, is there any sort of policy or plan of the Treasurer's Office for what to do with that money?
That money goes directly towards our evaluation by Standard & Poor's and Moody's, looking at our financial position. The more we have in unrestricted or reserve funds, that gives us a better credit rating, which was increased during my last term.
Okay, and has Standard & Poor's given any opinion as to sort of where they would like to see that restricted fund? Is there a sort of a floor, I guess, that they have in place to sort of keep your current credit rating?
Yes.
What is that floor?
I'm sorry, my financial advisor's not here. He told me at one point, but I can't remember exactly what that number is.
Okay. Is it 10 million, 5 million? Do you have
It wasn't a
ballpark?
number, it was
The
more of
range?
a calculation, like 1.2 times whatever your outstanding debt is. And currently, we have about $75 million in outstanding debt.
Okay.
So the more we keep in reserves, the better our financial position looks.
I think you can probably get at why I'm asking these questions, but I mean, obviously, you know, we're in the budget process in the city right now, and funds are extremely tight, and you've got essentially $13 million. But I understand you have to keep some reserve funds available for the credit agencies and everything, but that's a pretty sizable number, $13 million, given the state of the city's budget. Would you agree?
Well, we also have to keep track of our position as well. The treasurer's office is an enterprise fund. Also, the water department has $34 million in reserves. The airport has over $150 million in reserves. If we're going to start looking at reserves, we need to look at all of the reserve funds, not just the treasurer's office.
I would agree. Unfortunately, neither of those entities are under the purview of this committee. So with that, Mr. Chairman, today I don't have any more questions. I would ask for some additional time to dive through this audit and continue looking at some of the exhibits of the proposed budget for this year. Thank you.
Alderman Bosley.
I don't have any questions at this time.
Alderwoman Martin.
No questions.
Okay. You talked about the money that's in the mutual fund, but it's technically accessible cash that you have on hand, so it's kind of not restricted, right?
It's not considered restricted in the sense, I'm sorry. It's not considered restricted in the sense that the rest of these funds are, where restricted means that it is directly associated with the bond fund, so it is not associated with a bond fund.
Okay, so technically there's over $23 million.
Yes.
Okay. And best accounting practices or principles, what's pretty much the percentage for reserve funds based on operating?
The percentage of reserve,
Is there a standard percentage of your operating budget that would equate to reserves?
we don't necessarily have a standard percentage, but as the treasurer just indicated, we have to make sure that we're staying in line with making sure that our credit rating and all of those types of things are taken care of. So our financial advisors give us guidance on those types of things.
Okay. Madam Treasurer, is the financial advisor, has he said in writing, you talked about a 1-point-some%. Is that based on the operating budget? Is that based on outstanding debt?
I'm not sure. You'll have to ask him. I can give him, I can give you his phone number and you can have a conversation with him.
No, I don't want his phone number and have a conversation with him. I thought that may be something that maybe you can call him and get that information and give it to the committee.
Sure.
Okay. Let's talk about, we talked a little bit with Ms. Smart last week about the scholarships. So how do you calculate, the scholarship money is paid for out, I think you would always call it parking residual or something like that?
It's the 60% that after we split our net income with the city, 60-40, the 60% that we keep. So a portion of that goes towards the College Kids Children's Savings Account Program and other Office of Financial Empowerment related programs.
Right, and is that considered unrestricted funds pretty much?
I guess it could be.
That you can use for whatever you want to?
Yeah, as far as we are, like the treasurer just said, we are making that contribution out of our unrestricted money because that's the 60%.
Okay, so in theory, you could spend within that 60% money on whatever you want to?
In theory, yes. That's all under the discretion of the treasurer, yes.
Okay, let me ask you this. Can we buy trash trucks both within that 60%?
That's not something we've been asked to do.
Okay, but is it possible? Is it possible to buy trash trucks?
I would have to do some research on that.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I don't have any further questions. I was hoping to pass this out today, but it seems that Alderman Coder wants to review the audit, and we can have another meeting next Tuesday at 9 o'clock on the budget.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, we can. It's okay. We don't have to wait. We'll get he'll get the information or send an email with notes, and I'll entertain a motion to pass Board Bill 39 out of committee with a due pass recommendation.
So moved.
It's been moved and second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Who was the second?
Alderwoman Murphy.
Oh, second.
I moved it. I moved it.
Oh, I'm sorry, second.
Alderman Conway, Alderman Moore, Alderwoman Murphy, Alderman Kotar, Alderwoman Boyd, Alderman Bosley,
Aye.
Alderwoman Martin, Chairman Boyd.
Aye.
5 aye votes do pass.
Okay, the next board bill is Board Bill number 40, sponsored by Alderman Vaccaro. Do we have the parking administrator in the building yet? Okay.
So what I'd like to have, we have a committee sub, which we can only discuss today, I understand that. But I would like to, and I guess you guys would have to make a motion to put the committee sub in front of you for discussion.
No. No, it was not. Here's
It
what
wasn't, I know it wasn't given the 24 hours, that's why I know we can't vote on it.
Yeah,
But I'd like to discuss, you know, what the direction I'm going, the changes I'm making, and open it up in case there's more changes, because we learned a lot during the last meeting, when Jack Coder was asking questions. I certainly learned a lot. And so that's why we're up to now the news committee sub.
Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to discuss Board Bill 40, but just talk in general what your objective is. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have the parking administrator kind of talk about the process to see if we can have some meeting of the minds. And
Sure.
is this a board
So-
bill that we really need to pass out, or is this something that really can go to the parking commission?
And I actually, you know, I have our attorney here who said, yes, we have the authority to pass this out. And the objective is pretty simple. On the back of the ticket, it says you have 30 days to appeal it, but yet it doubles in, I believe it's 20 days or 21 days, whatever that is. And then, if you have your hearing, again, if you lose, you have 14 days to make that payment, or it doubles again, when by law, and Jack, I'm sure I'll mess this up, a trial de novo, is that right? I'm surprised. But because of that, even on a regular speeding ticket or whatever, you have the right to appeal things to the 22nd Judicial Court. That, you know, and that's in any municipality. So what I'm trying to get is that these things can't or should not double during that first 30 days, and then you have the right to appeal it, and it shouldn't double until you do the appeal. And then you should have an additional 30 days to either pay it or appeal it, and that's by law. And that happens even if, you know, even if you're in Maplewood or anywhere else, but if you're driving through a municipality and you get a ticket you feel is unjust, you have that right to appeal it without it doubling and going on. And if you don't like what a municipality says, and I had that happen to me in a town called Egger Springs, where I had gotten a ticket that I absolutely disagreed with, and we did appeal it. You know, I had my attorney appeal it, because when you go to a smaller, or well, even St. Louis City, but when you go to a municipality, you tend to not feel like maybe you got treated as fair as you should. And these are not in front of a jury. These are a hearing that's done in front of a person that's picked, and your chances of winning, I guess, get fairly slim. So you should have that right to appeal it to the 22nd Judicial if you choose to do so. So all this does is ask to put this in compliance with where it should be, 30 days. And I learned a lot on it last week, and so that's why it's changed around as much as it has. It should be 30 days that you have the right to appeal. The fine should not double while it's in the appeal status, and then you should have an additional 30 days by law in which to appeal or pay the outcome of what the city says you owe or don't owe. So that's all I'm asking for, and I don't think it's that difficult to do the right thing. You know, sometimes these parking tickets are put on the car and they're blown off, and you don't even know you got one till you get something in the mail. And by then, you're basically out of time. At least you should have that right to go out that 30 days to appeal to say, wait a minute, I didn't even know I never even received a parking ticket. So on the back of the tickets, which they brought out last week, it says you got 30 days to appeal. The problem is it doubles. You know, and, you know, last week I think you had asked, does it come to an end? Because I was using a payday loan analysis that this doubles and then doubles, and they said it has an end. It does have an end. It has an end with them putting a boot on your car and taking it away. So if you go to a payday loan place or a car title loan place, even they don't double and double and double and then throw a boot on your car and tow it away. I mean, you know, and that's why I use that analogy. I just think it's about doing the right thing. I think that if we go out in front of the press with this, I don't think you're going to find anybody to disagree that this is not against the treasurer, it's not against anything, it's about doing the right thing, doing what we should do. The 30 days, which it says on the back of the ticket, which again, it says you got 30 days to appeal, but we're going to double it before that 30 days. Doesn't make no sense. You know, that's like if I give you a loan and I say, hey, Jeff, here's the deal, you got 30 days to pay me back, but on the 22nd day, you owe me twice as much. So anyway, that's my argument. That's the changes we made to this bill. And the attorney's here, and he will also explain why we do have this right to do that, and that's why I asked our attorney to be here. So I'm open to any questions.
Okay, we're going to hold questions with you
Okay.
right now.
And again, we have the attorney that can speak to why we have the right to do this.
Okay. I'm going to ask Mr. Carl Phillips, the parking administrator, to come up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Board. Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, you've heard Alderman Vaccaro's kind of concern. Can you
Yes.
talk us through the process?
Absolutely.
From your point of view on what actually happened from the time that a ticket from the parking enforcement officer is put on the windshield?
So I'd like to go back to when Treasurer Jones first took office. The ordinance was 14 days. So on the 15th day, the fine doubled. So the treasurer, a couple years ago, in 2013, extended it for another week to 3 weeks for the citizens to pay. So that was a big benefit for the citizens. We didn't do a lot of press on that, but so they got 3 weeks to pay. If a person gets a ticket and they want to contest the ticket, as long as they call the Parking Violations Bureau within 21 days, that ticket's frozen. So the ticket is frozen, and this was kind of done through the Parking Commission to stop people from gaming the system. So according to the way Alderman Vaccaro is explaining it, if you waited till the 29th day and you said, hey, you know what, I don't think I should get this ticket, I want a hearing. So that's 29 days. So at that point, it could take a couple weeks to get the hearing. If you get your hearing, then we rule, the arbitrator rules, the adjudicators who we pay over there, then you have 15 days to pay. So that's technically, you could have 44 days to pay a ticket if you really, know what you were doing. So if you call before the 22nd day, if you call no later than the 21st day, we freeze that. And if, say, it was a sign investigation and they say, I didn't see that sign over there, if it takes our compliance people 3 weeks to get there, that has nothing to do with the citizen. So you've already frozen your double fine, and then you can have 2 months. So you could really have, we have tickets that have 3-4 months that they don't double. The issue is after the 21st day, because it's kind of unusual to say, oh, you know what, I don't think I should pay this after 3 weeks. You've already gotten 2 notices. That's what it's all about. And, so you're a member of the Parking Commission, and we can go through all that in depth, and, that body set that up, but the treasurer extended it for another week when she started.
And if I may add something to that, when he says the treasurer extended it for another week, he means the Parking Commission
Yes.
voted to extend the time that citizens are able to pay their parking tickets before a penalty is assessed. And I would say I haven't really looked at the committee substitute or the latest iteration of the committee substitute, but I would offer that we will be discussing this issue in a broader sense with the Parking Commission at the regularly scheduled meeting on Thursday, and we will discuss looking at the entire system. One of our administrative hearing officers, hired through a process that was overseen by our office, the comptroller, and the city councilor, was interested in looking at this process. His name was Don McCullen. He unfortunately passed away, so that somewhat halted the process, but it's something that we again would like to look at, and we will discuss with the Parking Commission. I would offer, in response to Alderman Vaccaro's point, that this body is the proper place to start the conversation on changing this issue. There are two statutes that govern the Parking Commission, and one of them is referenced in the bill, or in the board bill, and that's 82485 for Missouri. And that sets out the broad powers of the Parking Commission, including the ability to raise fines, or set rates, rather. But there's a second statute, statute 82.4871, and it states, the Parking Commission of any city within a county shall be the city's authority for overseeing public parking, including the planning and coordinating policies, programs, and operations for any parking facility or spaces owned in whole or part, or leased or managed by the Parking Division. On behalf of the city, the Parking Commission shall approve, number one, guidelines governing the administrative adjudication, disposition, and collection of any parking violations or complaints issued by the city. So even when the Board of Aldermen passed the enabling legislation establishing the adjudication hearing process, if you look at that ordinance, it says this bill already has been recommended and approved by the Parking Commission. So I would offer that, again, we hold the opinion that the Parking Commission is the appropriate place to have this conversation, and we're more than willing to have this conversation and address some of these issues, but we want to do it in a holistic manner, taking into account concerns from the folks who hear these cases, the administrative hearing officers, and other folks at the Parking Violations Bureau as well. So with that said, I'm happy to entertain any more questions on this.
Now, I want to ask Mr. Phillips
Yes.
to take it to the boot process. How do
Okay.
a constituent get to the boot process?
So if a citizen has 4 delinquent tickets, which means they have 4 tickets that are 22 days old, we have LPR license plate recognition equipment on the booters that drive around the city, and if they get a hit, they will then, that's one way that a car gets booted. It has 4 delinquent tickets. It says boot eligible in the computer. If the parking enforcement officer writes the ticket, it can pop up on their handheld device. It can say boot eligible. At that point, they go through a dispatch and they say bootable vehicle, Market and Tucker, and then the dispatch dispatches the driver to boot the vehicle. So it has to be on the fourth ticket, it has to be delinquent. So you can really, and when you get booted, you have to pay in full. So you could have 3 tickets and pay your 4th ticket for years, forever. Yeah, once you get to the 4th ticket and you become boot eligible, then you have to go back to 0.
Okay. I want to take some, ask the committee if they have some comments or questions. Alderwoman Murphy.
I'm sorry. Could you give me the number of that ordinance you cited again, Jared?
Sure, and I'll give
The second one?
I'll provide this to
Oh.
Ms. Booker so that she can provide
Okay.
the committee with a copy for your convenience.
thank you.
But it is section 82.487.
Okay. Yeah, I think the whole argument or whatever is that it seemed like the back of the ticket, the words don't agree. You know, it says 22nd day, it's doubled, but yet you have 30 days to comply. Knowledge is good. Oh, sorry. It is. So, I mean, it seems to be a question of semantics on the back of the ticket. And your position is that we don't have the position, we're not the proper authority to change that wording. Is that what you're telling us? That the wording should be changed through the park commissioner? It is very confusing if you look at the back of the ticket.
Sure. It is our position that the Parking Commission is the appropriate body to change any rules related to not just fees, but the adjudication of these tickets.
Okay.
And we've tried to revise the rules before, and like I said, are open to looking at that as a part of a broader process of potentially improving it for everyone.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, Alderman Coulter.
First question, Carl, you mentioned your license plate readers that look for, I guess, tags with 4 tickets or, I guess, more assigned to them.
Scan, right.
Do those scanners also, like, pop a notice if they come across a stolen vehicle?
Well, yeah, that comes from the police department, so those scanners will pop, it's called a hot list.
You're right, so if there's a car on the hot list and because your LPRs, you contract that out, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so if your contracted out guys are driving down the street and come across a car that maybe doesn't have any parking tickets but is stolen, does a notice go to the police department that we've got a stolen car right there?
Okay, so I'm not sure about that, and the reason being is because our handheld devices are programmed and linked with the police department. We get the hot list, then we call the boot crew.
Yeah.
Since the boot crew is a private contractor, I'm not sure to find out if they have the LPRs programmed to deal with stolen vehicles, because that would mean they would be booting something where we weren't in the
I don't
mix.
even necessarily mean they need to boot it, but just if they happen to have that list and they
Okay.
know that there's a stolen car, that then,
Right.
maybe it's just a quick call to
Then get the
PD,
answer.
that would be
Then get the answer to that.
helpful.
So with regard to our ticket issuance software, if a ticket writer is writing someone's license plate in and a hot list, we don't know if it's a stolen vehicle, but there is a segment that says hot list, and they are instructed not to deal with that and just to report that.
Good, so your ticket writers, your meter maids, I don't know what we call them, your
Parking enforcement
agents, if they run a plate
Right.
and it comes up on the hot list, they just notify the authorities?
Call 911 to step back.
Okay.
Because they don't know what's involved.
But I guess we don't know if the LPR van drivers do the same thing?
Not sure about that.
Okay, it'd be
I can
helpful
find-
if they
I can
did,
find
I
out.
think. Okay. Jared, I'm happy to hear that you guys are going to take a look at this issue relating to, I guess, the timing that your fines multiply and, I guess, the appeals process as a whole. I mean, I think this ordinance brought up an interesting topic. I wasn't even aware that, your fines are doubling before you've exhausted your appeal process. And I think it's a fairly simple fix if we just adjust some dates and really go another week out. Instead of the 22nd day, go to the 31st day. If you don't appeal your ticket on that 31st day, then the thing can double. And then if you take it all the way through your appeals process and get a final determination, give it another 30 days before you double it again, to give folks a chance to exercise their appeals right and get into court. And if they choose not to do that, go ahead and double their fine. I just think we should make sure that these things are in line with state law and with our own appeals process here in the city. Thank you for providing this, which is, I guess, a copy of your administrative adjudication process. I don't have any further questions.
Alderman Bosley.
Good morning, everybody. Just a quick question. I asked last week, but now we got the parking commissioner here. I think sometimes we spend a lot of time focusing on things when they might not make that big of a difference. So sometimes I just like to know what is the actual cons of it actually being pushed up to 30 days? I mean,
Percentage-wise?
I mean, period. What differences would it actually make? Does it make a difference in payments? Does it make, what differences does it make? What are the cons if it actually?
So on a 15-day ticket, on a 15-day expired meter ticket, if you appeal by the 21st day, so we would freeze that date. We would then give you a hearing. After the hearing is decided, then the arbitrator rules. Then if you're held liable, you have 15 days to pay. So by the 21st day, if you appeal, it doesn't double. On the 22nd day, the fine doubles, and 45 days after that, 45 days from the initial fine, it triples.
Right.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, what are the cons of us moving it up a week? What
Consequences?
Yeah, how would it hurt the treasurer's office?
Well, it would just be, basically a lack of cash flow. So they would just string out the payment. As far it wouldn't bother, it wouldn't hurt the office, but you're asking the time, if it goes to 30 days, what would the impact be?
Yeah, I'm asking what would happen, what can conspire from that?
Sure.
It seems like nothing.
It's difficult to answer that, I mean, because we're seeing a difference in the way our administrative hearing process is being run now, that the ticket enforcement devices have cameras on them. So we're still trying to figure out the effect of that, because now, before you can test a ticket, you can actually sometimes see whether or not your violation is contestable. So that's one of the reasons we want to bring in the administrative hearing officers, because it's something that it's an evolving issue, and it could, it could change things. So that's why I think it's important, like I said, to bring the folks who hear those cases in on this process. But from a fiscal side, I don't know what that would mean. I'd have to kind of tease that out.
Right. Okay, well, I just wanted to see, it seems like, just from my perspective, that there might not be too much of a difference on the business side of it if it was to be moved up to 30 days. And I know on the technical side, that's just a matter of programming, because it's, it's just simple technology. So, I mean, if it doesn't make a difference, we're spending a lot of time on things that, could only help, the people in the city. Just wanted to make that point.
Good, thank you. Mr. Phillips, so by the time a second notice has gone out in the mail,
Yes.
that's on what day that we actually send out in the mail? The what day?
Second is on the 14th day, that's 2
14th
weeks.
day.
So you get the first one between 7 and 8 days, then you get a follow-up one. And citizens, so basically the citizen has ignored 2 notices if it gets close to 30 days.
So by the time they get the second one, then it's doubled. It hasn't doubled by the time they get the first one.
No, or the second.
Okay,
Yeah, they're just waiting until, they have 21 days.
okay.
And on the 22nd day it doubles.
Right, so they've gotten 2 notices before it doubles?
Yes.
Okay.
Before they make a decision
Okay.
to call.
And remind me, what year did the fines increase 50%?
I believe it was 14. It was either end of 13 or 14.
15, I think it's
Right
15,
for the, the end
effective July 1,
of
2015.
July 1, I'm sorry, that's right.
2000 what?
15.
15. Okay, and was that the same time we got an extra week?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so that kind of happened simultaneously.
That's why it's difficult to, in all respect to Alderman Bosley, that's why it's difficult to tease out kind of the difference in pushing back a date a week, because we did it at the same time that we increased rates, but we also did it at the same time that we made it easier to pay for parking tickets. So we did it at a time when we started writing less tickets because we had higher compliance, and we also had a higher rate. So there were a lot of variables that kind of go into the way our office has changed, and teasing out, pushing back 1 week of time is one of those variables, and it's difficult to extract its effect because of the other things that occurred at the same time.
Okay. 4 tickets, so the parking enforcement person is going down Mappet Avenue in Bing
Yes.
on a street sweeping day. When he or she writes that ticket, is it the 4th ticket or the 5th ticket?
After the 4th ticket becomes delinquent for the 22nd day, then that car's boot eligible. So if they go to write that street sweeping, that would be the 5th ticket. They'll still call it in. They'll write the ticket, and they'll call a boot eligible vehicle on X street.
Gotcha.
Because it's already boot eligible in the computer.
Okay. And so the parking enforcement individuals have a license plate recognition reader, and they don't.
No, that's on top of the trucks that the contractor has.
Okay, so it's the contract. So
Yes.
how does that process work? We've hired this contractor, and they do what?
They do sweeps. They drive around, downtown's major zone. They drive around downtown. They'll get a beep if it reads the plate, and they'll boot the vehicle.
How many booths do we typically do a year?
I think 2,200 last year.
2,200?
Yeah. The city told.
Okay, and so then the process of retrieving that vehicle after it's booted, talk about that process.
So once the vehicle's, say a person owes $100, once it's booted, city tow boots the car, it's $125, that's what it costs. That's what city tow charges the citizen, $25 per day for storage. So once the car is booted and it crosses City Toll's gate, then you go from $100 to $225. I mean, $250, because you got 100 plus the 125 toll fee, and now it's been stored. So even if they come and get it, that's under the street department, but even if they come and get the vehicle, they have to pay the $25 storage fee.
I would also add to that, if your car is booted, you're eligible for an emergency hearing. So if, you know, a ticket was issued incorrectly that led to your
Yeah.
boot, you're provided with an emergency opportunity to go before a hearing officer to deal with your car.
Within how many hours?
The hearing officers are there, I believe, around 2 o'clock, from about 2 to 6 p.m.
Okay. Let's go back. So it's 125. Explain to me that 125 and that 250.
Okay, so if, say you have $100 worth of tickets on your car. So you go to the Parking Violations Bureau and you say, my car just got booted, it's at City Toll. You pay $100 at the window on 7th and Pine, and they'll give you a release form to take to City Toll on Hall Street.
Okay.
So now, unfortunately, if the vehicle has been towed already, there's a tow fee and there's a storage fee. We've had situations where we've left them on the street. If the citizen, we give them a couple extra hours, they can say, hey, I'm in the West End or whatever, I can get a ride over there. We'll leave it on the street for a couple of hours so they don't have to deal with the city tow issue. So we give them an opportunity to go and pay before we close at 6.
But they still pay the boot fee.
Yes,
How much is the boot fee?
$50.
$50.
Yeah.
Okay, so using your scenario, so if there's $100 in tickets that need to be paid,
Yep.
and they actually tow the car to the
Yes.
tow lot, so that's $125 for the tow.
Yes.
And then there's $25 for the storage fee.
Correct.
So that gets us to $250.
Yep.
Then there's the boot fee of $50, so they end up paying $300 on that scenario.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
So what happens if the car get booted at 5 o'clock on a Friday,
Yeah.
and they make it down to pay it as far as the parking fees, but by the time they get over to towing, it's after 6 o'clock, or is there?
So we've had a few of those. So if they got to the Parking Violations Bureau before 6, and they paid the fees, we would then, the project manager at the Parking Violations Bureau would call City Toll and tell them, go take the boot off. Go take the boot off.
Okay.
But do not tow the car, because the citizen, we're giving them a few minutes, they're coming over here. So take the boot off once they pay.
Okay, because I've heard situations where people had to wait till Monday to get their car because they didn't make it back in time.
But if they showed up and they didn't know that that was going to happen. In other words, if they went to the Parking Violation Bureau, got in there by 6, but they didn't communicate that to the Parking Violation Bureau, and somehow at 5:45 the car was towed, well, they still paid before 6, but they didn't let everyone know they were going to get there, and because the place will close. So they have to call City Toll before they close.
Okay, and then basically if you came outside and your car was gone, you would assume it's stolen or maybe the city took it, basically, right?
Yes, right.
And most people probably go to the, I guess, city tow first,
Yes.
and then they're
Or
told,
the police department.
and then they're told to go down to the parking bureau. Was that on 7th Street?
7th and Pine.
Okay. What would it be like if they could just pay everything at the toll lot and not have to go 2 different places?
But they can pay at the toll lot.
They can pay the parking fees?
Yeah, there's an ATM there. They can pay, but they have to pay. They'll give them a sheet. Yeah. They can pay.
I didn't see that when I went over there. At City Toll, there's an ATM machine.
Right.
And they can pay their parking tickets.
I don't know the form of payment that they use, but I believe it's cash. If you go to City Toll, I believe you have to pay cash.
Okay. And then the street department will send the revenue over to
Yes.
Parking Division.
Yeah.
Well, they must have tricked me when I went over. I didn't see an ATM machine.
Well, there's a way to pay. I don't know if there's an ATM machine, but there is a way to pay at City Toll. They've made some arrangements. I think it's cash.
Okay. So we should, if they can do that, then we should just be giving them instructions to just go to City Toll and handle all the business. That would be more convenient than going to 7th Street and then back to City Toll, right?
Well, it's in the yard. You know, it's a tow yard.
Right, I'm just saying for the convenience of the constituent.
You mean once it's towed?
Right, once it's towed to the yard, if every payment is made at the yard, then they don't have to run to 7th Street and run back. Sometimes they'll get there first to be told, okay, you can pay your tow fee, then you have to go downtown. That's what I was told.
But, and the way it was set up now, Alderman, they have there's a stat sheet that they give them at the window at the Parking Violation Bureau that tells all their fees, everything's been paid, and they can take that paperwork to City Toll. I'm not sure they're equipped to normally do this all the time, because that's a lot of boots. Talking about a couple thousand boots.
Right, now you're saying when they get to 7th Street,
Yes.
they get this sheet,
Yes.
and it shows everything is paid,
Right.
and then the
And
boot
they
is
sell
taken
them up
off.
at City Toll.
Right, but what I'm saying is, what if they could do everything as city towing, pay the parking violations, pay the boot fee, pay the towing, everything,
Meaning in addition to the PVB, whichever was better.
without coming to 7th Street?
Oh.
Can we do that?
They'd set that up at the street department. That'd be something we'd have to go through the parking commission would have to.
We can certainly look at it.
Yeah.
We actually did something similar to this when we came into office with regards to getting a permit for parades. It used to be that
Yeah.
you would have to go first to the Streets Department on Hampton to get a permit, and then you would come to City Hall physically with the numbers of each meter that you were going to pay for that parade, get a physical sheet, and then go back to Hampton with some acknowledgement that you've paid. We worked with the street department so that now you just go to the street department and they take payment for us so that people don't have to make 3 trips, they just make 1 trip.
Good. Alderman Vaccaro has a question.
I actually have a few. But, so first off, I know you want to make it sound better than it is, but a $15 ticket doubles, right, to 30, then it doubles to 60, and then it goes to 120, right?
It does not go to 120.
Okay, so it stops at 60.
45. What's the yes, the $45 penalty, that's correct.
Okay,
That's-
so if you got 4 tickets on your car, how could that only be $100?
It was a hypothetical situation.
Well, I mean, okay, but it's really $240. And then you had said that if you get a 4th ticket, okay, and you have this emergency appeal thing, which should happen in so many hours,
Yes.
okay, is that car towed before the emergency appeal? Well, you know,
If you're granted an emergency hearing in time, they leave the car on the street.
well, what's in time?
Well, before they close. I mean, it depends. They boot up until 5 o'clock.
So you come out of work, it's almost 5 o'clock, and your car's booted, but yet the ticket was an unfair ticket. Are you guys gonna go back and pay the tow fees and all that? If, they say, oh, wait a minute, you were right, we were wrong, the ticket shouldn't have been issued, but at this point, the car now's been towed, and you got a $100 tow fee, you got the fees of the lot, which I believe 25 a day or 50 a day?
25.
25 a day. Who pays that? Again, we're talking hypothetical, but the ticket was a mistake.
The fifth
But it
ticket-
still
the
was
fifth-
towed. The fourth
fifth ticket.
ticket-
Or the 4th ticket? Oh, I see.
The 4th ticket was still a mistake.
Okay.
So by rights, you didn't have the right to boot or tow it, but you did. But I appealed it and I won my appeal. Who's got to pay all the towing and all the fees, even though it wasn't my mistake?
Well, Alderman, so on the correspondence on the computer, on the 4th ticket, the Parking Violations Bureau can look and see all of the mailings that have gone out. So we're talking about a lot of mailings.
I understand. You said that on the 4th ticket, you have the right to an emergency appeal as long as you happen to catch it before 5 o'clock. So you didn't catch it before 5 because you have a job and you came out and your has been towed. You asked for an appeal of this. You say, I should not have gotten a ticket. Here's the proof.
He's talking about 2 different things, yeah.
What's that?
Wait, we don't, Deputy Chief of Staff was just saying, wouldn't be booted on the 4th ticket. We're talking about the 5th ticket, but I know you mean the 5th ticket, because you're saying that the 4th ticket was invalid and it was never contested.
Well, but you boot, so you're telling me when they come out and they look and they see it's the fourth ticket, they don't boot it?
They see they have 4 delinquent tickets, so on the 5th ticket, that's boot eligible.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's already been 4 tickets that are 22 days old, and that person has been riding around with a boot eligible car for 1 day, 30 days, however long time it is. So on the 5th ticket, it becomes boot eligible.
So, and then I know your numbers are hypothetical, but it would seem to me it'd be over $500 to get your car back if it got booted.
Well, okay, let's just use a parking expired meter. Expired meter is $15.
Right,
Say you
that's what
got a
I'm doing.
$15 ticket, you got 4 tickets 4 days in a row. So that's $60 right there. So on the 22nd day of the first ticket, that's the 22nd day. So you go 2, 3, 4, 5. So on the 27th day, you owe $60,
For
right?
each ticket.
Yeah, you owe $60. After all those tickets have doubled, right? According to what you said,
Right.
that would be $120.
240 for 4 tickets. 6, 12, 18, 24, 240.
With 60.
I'm
15
thinking 60 times 4.
15 times 4 is 60, and you
And then,
double
and
that.
then, and then you really got
that's
a
120.
fifth, then you got a fifth one to throw in there.
Well, that would mean also that the person did not comply with all of the mailings that have gone out for several weeks.
Well,
But,
you know, and I don't have an issue. I realize that you have to have a process to collect stuff. And I'll say that when I've called Carl and you've looked at the pictures, you've been fair about, but there is, what sparked this, first off, was a call that I had raised originally from, I believe it was Channel 4, about the process, is what put it off in my mind, because they said it seems like an unfair process, which I agree with. I would think that, and again, I got in a small community where the speed limit went from 65 to 55 to 45, a little bit different. Then it goes from 45 to 55 to 65. And I was probably from here to the end of the table where the sign's 55, so I start speeding up to 55, which I got a ticket, because you can't start speeding up until you pass the sign. But I felt it was extremely unfair, because I also start to slow down when I see a sign that says I'm going to slow down. But they gave me a ticket for accelerating before the sign, telling me that, well, you're not technically in the state of Missouri until you pass the sign. Now, I viewed it as something they were doing to make money, so they wanted me to just go online and pay a ticket, and that they would work something out. We said, no, not only would we not pay it, do what you have to do, but we're going to appeal it, because we felt that at least in a state court, we would stand a chance, in which case they dropped the ticket, because I don't think the objective was for them to spend so many $1,000s to defend a ticket in state court. So when you start talking about that 30 days after, that you have the, if I have an attorney, which I would appeal it. And then it's up to you guys if you're going to spend the money to try to collect a $15 traffic ticket, send an attorney out to court. So, I mean, what I'm getting at is that extra 30 days may not seem like a lot, but it is. I mean, it could make the difference of taking it out of a municipality into a state court. And, of course, we're going to bring this up next week, I would hope. And I'm anxious to see what you guys do, but my objective is 30 days and 30 days. And it seems like a long time, but this is, huh? But I'm sorry, but to me, it's the law, and it would make sense to do that. And if we do that, then I'm happy. Whether we do it here and our attorney can explain, because I did ask how we have the right to do that, or you guys do it. My objective is, I'd like to see a more fair system for the people that receive parking tickets. And Carl, when somebody's parked on cleaning day, I'm probably the first one to call your office and say, hey, get somebody over there to put a ticket on that car. I understand the importance of these tickets. I get that, but I also understand the importance of the people's rights. You know, and then there's gonna be people that can't even afford, you know, when it doubles or triples. Is there any kind of, I know that on a lot of things we've worked out where they can just do community service. You know, is that in place? I mean, I'm just thinking that, you know, I mean, and for what it's worth, this week I have the one on the tow lot. If you're a victim of a crime, that your car gets towed to the tow lot, you can pick that up now at no charge, or you will be able to pick it up at no charge. Before, if you were a victim of a crime, your car got stolen and it got towed to the tow lot, you had to pay like $200 or $300 to get your car out. And that's gonna change. All these things aren't meant to hurt or attack anybody. These are more just things that seem to me to be the right thing to do. And that's the only reason I'm doing this. It's not out of meanness, it's not out of trying to hurt anybody. In the case of the stolen cars, it estimated that the city would lose $325,000. But I just don't think it's right, if you're a victim of a crime, to have to pay to get your car back out after it was stolen in the first place. So I don't want you guys to take this in anything other than the spirit that I would like to see it done. And whether you do it at the parking commission, and I'm assured that it's in place, or we do it here, I just want to see it done. And I appreciate you guys, Carl. You do a good job.
Thank you. Okay, Alderwoman Martin.
Thank you. Sorry, back to the original extension, that was in 2015, you said?
Correct. It was effective July 1, 2015.
Okay. And did it ever come up, this 21 versus 30 days, then about it would technically double before you could, you know, before the appeal process ends? Did anybody talk about that?
No one talked about it. In fact, it was more draconian before 2015 because your parking ticket would double on the 15th day
Okay.
as opposed to the 22nd day.
Okay. This, to me, it seems like we need to be talking to the commission, correct, about this?
Yes, and I would reiterate that it's something that will be brought up at the Thursday meeting, not just this, but looking at all of the hearing procedures and just giving it a look anew.
Okay, and if we wanted to change the commission versus the treasurer's office administering this, then that we would have to go to the state for that, correct? To change the statute?
It is a state statute.
Right, okay. I understand the 21 versus 30 days, I do. I think that just pick one, to be honest. I mean, and I understand now, that gives me a little more context on that it used to be 15. But I get that I guess I take some issue with that your ticket can double before the appeals process is closed. So that's my thoughts on that. Let's just pick 21 or 30. But I do want to say, as someone who's worked on predatory lending in this state years ago with Treasurer Jones, there's a fine line between predatory and personal responsibility. And either way, I think there's ample time for people to appeal before their ticket doubles. And also, if you receive 4 tickets, then you know you need to pay them. I don't know why we're kind of going down this boot road, to be honest. But I guess I'll just leave it at, I think that we should talk to the commission about this and just pick 21, 30 days. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just FYI, Alderman Martin, the treasurer and myself sit on the parking commission, as well as Mr. Phillips. So you basically have 3 of the commissioners here at the hearing, which is really good to have him and the treasurer here as we talk about this, so they can hear it firsthand and instead of just what's been presented from staff
Okay.
or watching it.
Thank you.
Okay. And I'm going to have Kent Flake from the street come up, and then I'm going to have Nolan Sharkey come up, the legal counsel for the Board of Aldermen. And Kent, I know you wasn't prepared for this, but since you're out there and you're a residential expert, So as we look at potentially making modifications to the administrative process of the parking fines and how that stuff works, at the end of the day, it could potentially get to the street department at the tow lot. How inconvenient will it be if a constituent can pay their parking fees and their tow fees and everything right there?
This was discussed a couple years ago. We were on board, putting a kiosk in, whatever we need to do. It makes our lives a lot easier because we deal with a lot less angry people. When they show up and we tell them, oh, you got to go downtown to pay your tickets before you can come back, they don't like that. It is a little extra work for us, but I think the bright side is people aren't so angry.
What do you mean kiosks?
Just anything, as far as, we've got 2 windows there currently. I know Treasures, you can pay tickets online. We talked about putting a computer out there if need be, or we could have a manned window and do it that way. I'm not picky. It's just something that we'd really like to see.
Oh, so it's pretty timely then.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. I just want to make sure that all parties are on board and we can have some friendly dialogue about how we be more effective and efficient.
Yeah, and one small correction earlier, it's $100 for tow, and then it's $25 for storage. It's not 125 plus 25. It's a
Okay.
small thing, but
Thank you.
thank you.
And let me ask, wait a minute, one more question. So let's suppose, go back to Alderman Vaccaro, let's suppose somebody, unfortunately got booted, but maybe they shouldn't have been booted. Do we have a relief policy at the tow yard where we could, not charge them, just take the boot off and give them the car?
I'm not an expert on that because I'm not at the tow lot
Okay.
often. But I know with a lot of situations that we are very open to, if we hear a scenario, if somebody from their office were to call us up and say, you know what, this is all messed up, please let them have whatever back, we would do that.
Okay.
The other small issue is that Treasures, I believe, bases everything they have off a license plate. As we all know, that's 2 screws to hold a license plate on, and we base essentially everything we do off of VIN, which is a vehicle identification number. So there's always a lot of confusion with that because a lot of people are riding around with hokey plates, and so the plate might be a bad plate, but there's nothing wrong with the car, and there's no semblance of anything wrong with the vehicle.
I have no sympathy for them if they do that. Too bad, they got booted.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions for Kent Flake? We'll go down the road real quick. Alderwoman Murphy? Alderman Coder?
No question.
Alderman Bosley?
No question.
Alderwoman Martin? No question. Okay, we'll have Attorney Nolan Sharkey come up with the City Council's office, who's representing the Board of Aldermen. And he's just going to give his interpretation. State statute 82.487. There's just a small difference of opinion, but at the end of this meeting, I'm hoping that we can all come to resolve as the best approach to solve this particular problem.
Right, I completely agree. The statutes here can definitely be overlain with one another, which causes some slight confusion over who is the authority in this manner. Hopefully the Parking Commission in the end can take the advice from this committee and go forth and change the rules without any further action need to be taken by the Board of Aldermen. I do believe the Board of Aldermen does have some authority in this manner. First, looking as referenced before, it was 82.485, which says Parking Commission shall set rates and fees. This does not include, if you look back at subsection 3 right before it, talks about parking fees and rates, but it goes on to discuss fines and penalties, completely distinguishing between the 2 statutes that the Parking Commission is not in the Parking Commission does not have the authority, complete authority in the fines and penalties area. Going on to the subsection, the other statute that was referred to, 82.4871, in that it does say, and it seems pretty clear at first reading, that the guidelines governing the administrative adjudication, disposition, and collection of any parking violations of complaints issued by the city. However, there is another section of Missouri statute, section 536, which guards all administrative actions in the city and the administrative adjudication process. In that statute, 30 days is set as a time for all appeals. By having the parking commission come in and set anything lower than that, it is trying to preempt state statute, which we all know is not allowed. So the 30 days by itself should be the rule set forth as established under Missouri statute 536. Any violation of that would be seen as invalid and a violation of citizens' due process rights. So basically going forth, hopefully the easiest way to do this would definitely be through the Parking Commission, not through the Board of Aldermen. I completely agree with that. But at the same time, if the Parking Commission is not complying with current state law, I do think it is the Board of Aldermen's interest. As legal counsel, I do think it is the Board of Aldermen's interest to protect the citizens and their personal interests in being protected. So if necessary, the Board of Aldermen, I do believe, can step in and try and enforce state law.
Okay.
So is there any questions on that?
Any questions of Attorney Nolan Sharkey? Alderman Murphy? Alderman Coder? Alderman Bosley?
No question.
Alderman Martin? Okay, thank you. Okay, wait a minute. We're gonna keep it open right now. I'm almost done.
Okay, I was just gonna say, I'm willing to hold this for at least a couple of weeks
Okay.
to see if the parking commission comes back with it. If not, I would like to have this brought up within the next 2 to 3 weeks, if that's possible.
Okay, we'll
In the
hold it.
meantime, I'm willing to sit back and wait.
We'll hold it. Go ahead and put it on the calendar and as a committee substitute, but we will hold it, for 3 weeks.
Okay, and then that gives them the opportunity, but at the end of the day, I would hope to see them do the right thing.
Okay, and well, I'm sure they will. I had one other question I forgot to ask Mr. Phillips. Is there such, Jared had talked about an emergency hearing.
Yes.
Are there such thing as hardship cases with the hearing officers? Or is everything pretty much?
It's just cut and dry.
Cut and
I
dry,
mean,
okay.
yeah, the hearing officers are attorneys, and because once we decided not to get into hardship because we don't know what we're dealing with, so we hear that all the time.
Gotcha.
I don't have the money.
Okay.
Can I pay something on it? It's just a rule.
Personal responsibility. I get it. Thank you. Okay, we're going to wrap up this conversation with Treasurer Jones. Back to Board Bill 39, we did pass that, but one of the things that came up was the percentage of reserves, and you made reference to, I guess it's PFM, who's the manager of the funds, that would make a recommendation on the percentage of reserves, right?
No, that was incorrect. PFM is our asset manager. They manage all of our reserves as well as the city's reserve funds. Our financial advisor makes the recommendation on what to carry as our debt reserve, and I've already sent him a message and waiting
Okay.
his reply.
Thank you, and if you can, forward that to me and I can get it
I
to the
will.
committee, that would be great. And I want to say I really appreciate you coming today and Carl Phillips, because this is, what, process is all about, making city government effective and efficient. And we can't do it if we don't have the actual leaders and the ones that are responsible present. We can always, have expert staff that can represent us well, but there's nothing better than having, the actual decision makers, at the hearing. So I just want to again thank you, for your time today and bringing your staff. And we look forward to supporting the Parking Commission in any way we can to help, make it a great organization. So
Thank
again,
you.
thank you. And the Street Committee is now adjourned.
Schedule another meeting on